Welcome to Satsang. Today we're going to talk about a subject. It's very, very powerful, but yet it's very simple. And when you talk about it right off the bat, in its simplicity, people don't get it. And they cannot value its power. So, the word we're going to discover first, and we're going to learn about most, is the word power. Okay? The word power is very significant because when you've been raised up without too much love, the first 6 years of your life especially, you tend to give in to power automatically to make up for that lack of love. So we always use power as a substitute for love. Now when I talk about power, we're talking about control. You need to get your own way, you get offended if you don't, if people don't pay attention to you, you feel ignored, you just die inside. In other words, you feel that you have to be in control and afraid of being controlled. Okay, so that's a very important part of power, but that is such a minute point of power. But we have to understand it because the third dimensional world that we live in is based on this power. And one thing about power which is external, because we're going to be talking the whole aspect of power, is that power that is from the ego is self-destructive. So the very thing that you're trying to achieve through it you'll achieve the opposite, which is the law of reversed effort. Okay? Whereas when you really use the real power, which of course we're going to be discussing in a little while, then it never fails. Okay, so power. The best way to start understanding power is to talk about the three levels of consciousness, or the three stages that people go through, or the three kinds of people. I think that's best. There are three kinds of people. Okay, the valley people, the mountain climbing people, and the top of the mountain people. Okay, just bear with me for this because it's a good explanation of the three stages, but the labels I'm giving them are mine. Okay, so the valley people are people who believe that the world is very real. Everything is black or white. They are very third dimensional, in other words. Okay, their mind is not open to possibilities, infinite possibilities. And another thing too is that they believe that the world is everything is out there instead of in here. People don't actually know that they live inside. Really, you know, they see the world out there and they figure everything is out there. But that's a third dimensional aspect of power. Now another thing about power is that power is, as I said already, is self-destructive. And in all the countries where dictators were the predominant leaders, they all self-destruct. Saddam Hussein, Hitler, Mussolini, we know it all, right? Okay. Because power knows no end, and when you start tasting it, you want more and more and more, because you've never known love, you've never known fullness of being, you've never known real inner satisfaction. So if I have power over you, then I feel that I can have power over you, and therefore I feel powerful. But then it's never enough, you know. It can lead to crime, even serial killers. So anyway, so the first level is third dimensional, is based totally on personal power. And when you start getting out of it and you start questioning, you start climbing, so to speak. We call it the seeking stage. But the seeking stage still is power oriented. So it seeks the supernatural, it seeks to gain more power for oneself. I want to get enlightened, thinking that if you're enlightened, you're powerful. You see, So you have these needs, these wants all the time. I want to understand more, I want to be more aware, I want to do this and I want to do that, thinking that you're gonna gain, not realizing that you're already those things. Okay, but of course, being the third dimension, you don't see it that way because you think in terms of out there, achievement, gaining. Then we move to the middle of the mountain as we start climbing, and as soon as we reach the middle of the mountain, we have our first glimpse of reality. We have our first understanding. Okay, and immediately things begin to change automatically. We become softer, we become gentler, we become more compassionate. And we begin to see that the control that we wanted was because you're not really a doer at all. It was just a force. Because we always got what we wanted when we were kinder, more fulfilled and happier, rather than when we controlled it, or you see. So in other words, the middle stage is a very beautiful stage when it shifts your understanding of how it is. Then you also get close to the top of the mountain, almost. And as soon as you get there, and so many people get there, and many of the emails I get are people who are almost to the top of the mountain, but not quite. And when you are there, what happens is that all the stuff that you never dealt with, and all the fears that were never resolved, and all the things that are still unconscious now begin to surface. And sometimes they begin to surface all at once. And this is what is happening too in the stage that we are in. A lot of stuff is surfacing and people are becoming confused. And the first thing that people start to think is, am I regressing? Am I going back? I mean, I had a beautiful spiritual experience maybe years ago because it was the middle of the mountain, right? So now I got so close, but now I feel I'm regressing. I'm confused. I don't even know what I want. I don't even know where I'm going. I don't know who I am. Nothing. So then somebody tells you where God lives. And you say, well, if I go and knock on God's door, maybe if I meet God, I'm going to be okay. and so you find God, you find his house, and you knock at the door. And then as soon as you knock at the door, you say, oh my God, what if God actually appears and he's light and I disappear? And you stop and you walk away. Okay? The chance that you've had to take that leap, you don't take, because there is a fear of disappearing, thinking that there is such a thing as disappearing. When we talk about disappearing, these are metaphors. You don't disappear. You never disappear. You're always you. When you think that now you're appearing, it's just a belief. Are you with me so far? Because actually nothing changes. So then few people make it to the top of the mountain. They look down and they say, oh, it is so clear. It is so simple. I knew all this. I always knew it ever since I was a child. This is so incredible simple. Okay, so that's the top of the mountain, and we call it the awake state, and we call it the fourth dimension. When you start seeing clearly, that's the fourth dimension. Okay. So now we talked about two powers. There aren't really two. There's just one is a seeming power, which is very physical and it's external, and the other power, which is the real power. But this real power is so simple that we've never really seen it as a power. You see? So what is this power, the real power? Now if I tell you, the mind will jump in and says, that's it. But as we go into it, you'll begin to see. It leads you deeper and deeper, deeper, knowing. Okay, this is what power really is. Seeing everything as it actually is. Or rather, seeing what is as it is. It looks so simple, doesn't it? And it is. Because truth is very, very simple. But why is it that Why is it that makes it seeming so difficult? Because whatever we experience, we add a story to it. So what is a story? You know, last time we were talking about witnessing, and they said you see somebody yelling at you, and when you witness that person yelling, what do you see? And then a person would say, well, I saw someone calling me names, offending me, calling me a jerk or whatever, and they were very livid as they looked at me as if they hated me, and I feel all that, and I'm very disturbed. Do you know that all that is a story? It has nothing to do with what actually happened. So what is it that actually happened? Someone opened his mouth and said a few words. The words were sounds that you interpreted as very personal. So story is what confounds us from that power that we really are, from the total spiritual power that we have, is that we make a story because we connect it with the personal. And the moment you make anything personal, you die inside. And you don't see clearly. And when I say die, it means you die to truth. Because you live in complete illusion at that moment, you see. So as we go deeper and deeper into what is power, power is the ability to see how it actually is without a story. So how do you begin to see how things actually are? Do you know how simple it is to understand human nature? To understand every facet of emotion, all negativity, all pain, how simple it really is? You know what it is? Wanting love. That's all the pain that is, instead of being love. Think of anybody that is disturbed. They end up in a mental home eventually. They started out by simply getting very hurt, very offended, thinking there is something wrong with them, thinking that they're not good enough. But because they never run across someone who can help them and love them, that it kept escalating, you see, in their awareness. And because of that escalation, it kept on getting larger and larger and larger, until they came to the point where I must be crazy. There's something really wrong with me. And of course, the more you repeat it, the power of mind is that what you focus on, you become, right? The law of attraction. So therefore, you keep repeating that often enough, and before you know it, you're bonkers. So this is the point, that when we do not see things clearly, we only see what we think we see, which is just a story. So now, what is the simplicity? I repeat, okay, I repeat again. There is one, if you can understand this, like when I understood this, and I studied psychology, you know, and I played hypnotherapist for many years, but when I understood this, you know, it's just so simple. Okay, what it is this. There's only love. Nothing else but love. And as long as you're working from that love, you love yourself, you love everyone, you just love, period. You're healthy. You laugh easily. You know, you enjoy life. But the moment you want love, immediately there is a fear of not being loved. There is a fear that you're not going to be loved as you need to be loved. Or there is a fear of rejection, or there is a fear of whatever. Okay? All fears start from wanting love. Now, why is it that wanting love, after all, love is all that there is, why is it so dysfunctional?
It's rejection.
It is self-rejection, isn't it? Very good. So saying I want love means I don't have it. So you are voiding yourself from the very thing you want most, thinking that you don't have it. You see? Now, all the known maladies, all the dysfunctions, and I say this without doubt whatever, you know, because I worked at this for many, many years. I've never met anyone who had some aberration that didn't come from this need or want. You see? But all that a person wants when they come to talk to you about their problems is first to be noticed, which is need for love, you see? Love me. Then for someone to listen, because listening is I am worth it. And if I am worth it, therefore I must be good enough. You see? So therefore when you go to a psychiatrist, and even though he gives you drugs, but he does some good because he's listening. He's listening to you. You see what I mean? So that is the essential thing. And then after a while, if the person becomes convinced that yes, I am the love that I am seeking and wanting because it is my true nature. Now when you realize that, that starts the power. And now when you start looking at anything, you see it as it is. Because the story is no longer there. The story only exists because you don't feel loved. So you're wanting love, you see? And in wanting love, you're ready for the slightest offense, for the slightest, somebody ignoring it, for the slightest thing. You get, you know, maybe they didn't love me, they didn't call me, maybe they don't want me around, whatever. See, we keep entertaining these thoughts because there is such a great, immense fear of not being loved. But isn't that gives you a lesson in itself? The greatest fear is not being loved. How beautiful it is to know. Therefore, everybody suffers from that. Everybody. So everybody suffers from that. It means that I must be loved. Everybody wants it. You see, if you take that leap into understanding it, and that becomes the healing itself. So, now we come to the very, very important point here. Once you understand the dynamics of power, and real power is not physical, it is simply the understanding that there's only love. Because unconditional love is the greatest power that there is in life. And most of the times we call it God. Okay? And it's beautiful to call it God, because you put it all into that oneness which it is. The fullness of being, love itself. So now once we understand this, we understand the whole dynamics of it, now we can be ready to walk into real power. And real power is so beautiful because it benefits everybody, not just you. It's called witnessing. But you see, we had to discuss it from the beginning with the different stages that people go through, because witnessing cannot be given to a third-dimensional person and said, there, witness that. You say, how do you do it? You just be aware of it and that's it? Not quite. It is awareness of awareness without anyone being aware. Now that sounds like a tall order. So the best way to define witnessing would be to say, to see something as it actually is without its story. Let me give you an example, and this is a true case. There was a shaman, and incidentally shamans become warriors when they can start witnessing. You've heard of that, right? Okay, so they're called warriors, and this warrior was in the desert meditating. And then in a little while, a cobra came. You know, he noticed the cobra right away. And he said, the only thing I can do now is witness the cobra. So he witnessed the cobra. The cobra started twirling around his legs, slithering around his body, going around his neck, almost choking him, and he kept on witnessing it, witnessing it. After a while, the cobra got tired and walked away, slithered away. Okay? He wasn't touched at all, he wasn't bitten, nothing happened. Why? Because in witnessing there is no fear. Because when you work at witnessing, you get rid of the story. When you get rid of the story, you automatically move into love automatically. And that's the beautiful thing. And an animal, no matter how wild it is, it will not attack you if you're not afraid of it. Did you know that? Very few people know that. The first time I heard of it was from Ramana Maharshi. He was on the mountain, and the Arunachala mountain is huge, you know. And so one afternoon he was missing, and it was raining hard, you know, and everything else. And his disciples got so worried, where could he be, you know. And they looked for him, and finally they found him, and he was actually petting a cobra on its head. And then he said, but what if it bit you? And he said, weren't you afraid? And he said, would a stone, no, why doesn't the cobra attack you? He says, would a cobra attack a stone? That's exactly how he put it, Ramana Maharshi. You see, because a stone has no fear, right? It's just there. Right, and it was just there. So there was nothing that threatened the cobra for it to strike. You see? So this is a beautiful example that when you witness, you overcome fear. Why is it that you overcome fear when you start witnessing?
Because fear is what if. It's not now.
It's a story, what if?
Yeah.
Hey, that's that's beautiful. Okay, right. That's it. So if you're totally witnessing now, where is the fear? See, all fear is a story. The cobra, what is the story? It's going to attack me. You didn't see a cobra. You saw something that's going to attack you. Do you understand? That's the story. But if you see something as it actually is, that will bring you strength. You see? Because fearlessness is seeing what is as it is. Okay, so now let's talk about witnessing. You know, we talked about the best practice to start witnessing is to watch your own breath. Because when you watch your own breath, after a while, after long practice, maybe a few weeks daily practice, you'll realize there's no one breathing. You see, you know what I mean when I said no one breathing? Your body is still breathing in and out, but there's no one doing it. It's just being done. Okay? So this is where you begin to understand witnessing. Nobody does anything. You see, the two aspects of awareness are self-recognizing and self-organizing. Now, self-recognizing means that all 7 billion humans on this earth have the same one awareness. But because it is self-recognizing, everybody thinks, oh, the awareness is mine. Because if you ask anybody, how do you know you exist? They'll say, of course I do. Well, how do you know? They'll say, because I'm aware I exist. But that awareness that you exist is not individual. Did you know that very few people know that? It is not individual at all. It just is. It is the very nature of being. But the most powerful of all is self-organizing. Self-organizing, yeah. Not self-recognizing, but self-organizing is the most powerful. Because we take everything for granted. But, you know, when a woman is pregnant, she says, oh, feel it kicking, isn't it wonderful? You know, oh, what a miracle, oh, this and this. But she never stops to think, but what gives it the eyes, the brain, the skin, the blood? What creates it? Self-organizing principle of life. You see? It's the same way when you eat. You think you're doing the eating. All you do is put a morsel of food in your mouth. Digestion, assimilation, distribution, and final elimination is all done for you. Now you might say, what if I'm constipated and I don't eliminate or I don't do this? That's not the fault of self-organizing. It is that you interfered with it. Either you ate too fast, or maybe you didn't eat the right food, or it could be that you are keep things inside so much that you become constipated. That's what happens physically. When you keep things in your unconscious, you become constipated. Okay? Because it keeps things inside. Okay. So that's self-organizing. Isn't that beautiful? That very simple awareness that we take for granted. Right now, I'm aware of you. You see? But the reason I'm aware of you is because there is awareness. And that very awareness itself is. It doesn't belong to anyone. It just is. You see? So if your consciousness has a different viewpoint, opinion, different ideas, different beliefs, different background, different conditioning, the awareness can see all that. The awareness can stop and see all that. You see? You know, there was for a long time, the one thing I wanted was, after I studied metaphysics and I was interested in psychology in the beginning, and one thing I always wanted was to be my own teacher. And I worked at it for many years. I didn't want anybody to, it's good to have a guru, to have a teacher who's aware, who's awakened, definitely. But the point is that if the teacher is worth it, he will liberate you to be your own teacher, in other words, you see? See, that is the function of a teacher, is to teach you to see that the best teacher is in you, your own inner guidance. And that's one thing that was fascinated me. When I ran across the Course in Miracles and it talked about the Holy Spirit, all of a sudden I had this insight. That's what the Holy Spirit is. It's the very I am that I am. You see? So if I go into awareness, just awareness of awareness, but not being Burt this or being Burt that or being this or being that, just this, and become aware of that, that will teach me everything I need to know. You see? And so this is the magic of witnessing. Now, when you start witnessing, because people often ask, well, what is the difference between awareness and witnessing? There's no difference. Witnessing is awareness. But the only thing that makes it a little bit more understandable is that awareness is aware of awareness itself. Am I clear here? Awareness of awareness? Okay, so it's not aware of something. It's holographic. It just is. If you place a mirror in front of you and you place another mirror behind you, your image becomes non-ending. Did you ever notice that? Okay. And, you know, you place one behind you or one in front of you, and your face becomes unending. You know, it duplicates over and over and over again on a. Okay. So this is what awareness is. Okay? Awareness is all-encompassing. In fact, awareness is God itself. It is unconditional love. It is the pure being. You see, it is the fullness of being. But it is not something. And that is the point. Now, when you start witnessing, this understanding starts coming to you automatically. Okay? Let's do a little experiment right now and see where we go from there. Okay. I'd like you to hold your back straight, head erect, and close your eyes for a moment. Okay. Now, this is what I'd like you to do, is to visualize exactly what I'm going to give you to visualize, to see. You're going to experience the power of your mind over your body for this moment. Okay, so Bert goes into his fridge and he takes out a lemon, a very cold lemon from the fridge. And you're there with him. So then he slices this lemon, all the juice is coming out, he takes a bite, and then he gives you to take a bite yourself. Now picture yourself biting into this lemon right now. Okay, you're biting into it? Okay. Now as you're biting into this very cold lemon and its juice, what is happening to your body? This is just imagination. But your body has acted. Did you feel that your salivary glands were moving? Were, right? Okay, now open your eyes. Okay, now, this is where we start moving beyond the story. Now the lemon has a story that affects us immediately. The story is what affects you. For example, you know, there's several guys together, and all of a sudden a very attractive woman, very sexy woman walks up, takes off all her clothes. Most of the guys get erections. What did it take? Why did it happen?
Because of the story they had in their mind.
Very good.
Anticipation.
It's the imaging. It's the mental picture. But a person who witnesses without trying to be in control has complete control. Because he can witness whatever he wants or she wants and not be affected. That is the power. Ordinarily, that's why we need to practice witnessing, because we immediately caught, immediately. Just like with the lemon, you bite into it, you got salivary glands and move right away. But can you imagine the whole thing and not have it affect you?
That'd be a big test.
Yes, it will be a very big test. But it works. You can still do it by simply not getting caught in the story and seeing it in a very detached way. Yeah.
So then it's to experience void of thought. Like
Not necessarily. See, if we think in terms of having a void of thought, that becomes a thought. So, when we focus on witnessing, we can make witnessing itself as a thought. Okay? So that's a mistake. And a mistake in the sense that it's no longer seeing without a story. Are we there?
Not yet.
Okay. Okay.
Almost, probably a minute.
Okay. So, so where were we? So yeah. So this is where witnessing requires practice. To be able to see any event in your life and to see it without its story. And then comes a moment when you can actually see it as it is. And the moment you do, you begin to awaken powers you never thought you had. You begin to see clearer, you begin to have experiences, you begin to feel greater love. But the most important of all is what happens inside you. The understanding that will come to you that has no words at all. You were going to ask something?
Just that witnessing is not dependent upon thought or no thought. That it is not about the act of clearing your mind. That is another attempt
That's
that
right.
we do. It is not about attaining anything. It's about letting go of all attainment and all non-attainment. Detaching isn't the best word. Just having being present to the witnessing
That's
that
right.
is there.
That is such a perfect, he did a better job than I did. So therefore, this is it, answers your question, okay? It has nothing to do with stopping thought. It has nothing to do with trying to do anything. It is simply learning to just witness. What better way could we put it? To witness something without you being there.
Not attached.
Yes, it's non-attached. That's a very good word, non-attached.
There was a little saying that my teacher gave to me, and he said, anything I see, which means experiencing, is not a part of me. And so my mind and ego hated it. But it meant that any story, any judgment, was just that. It was just a story, a judgment, a thought. It was not good or bad, or it just was what it was. And that freedom allowed the witnessing to be clean.
Yeah. That's excellent. So witnessing is very clean. There's no good or bad, right or wrong, should or shouldn't, must or mustn't, must gain or lose or win or whatever. There's none of that. There's just being the witness of what is happening as it actually is in its purity. And it's not going to happen overnight. If it was that simple, then everybody would be walking enlightened. You see? But this is the most powerful that there is to be able to start seeing something as it actually is. Okay. Let's talk about, give a few examples of watching something that pertains to you, and then how we can use it to witness it. Yeah.
I'm just seeing a setting in an office, let's say, where you have, let's just pick a number, 20 people, each coming from a different perspective, different mood, different whatever, different, deadline, whatever. So here you are seeing this and part of it at the same time. Right? So I'm wondering about witnessing in that.
Okay. So now let's witness that. Okay? First of all, you go to work every day, you see these people every day, you do those acts every day. Because you are accustomed to that scenario, you have acquired hundreds, if not more, thoughts about what you feel is happening. The stories have already been created inside you. Like somebody gets up and gets a cup of coffee, and then they sit down and get another cup of coffee, and then there's, oh my goodness, how many times are they going to have coffee, you see? Oh, we've already made a judgment. So many things go, or maybe she didn't fill in the cup, or maybe she used a dirty one, or maybe you don't like her or like her. There's so much that fills our mind with stories. Okay, but if you were to look at her getting a cup of coffee, at that moment you witness it, what do you see? I'd like you to feel it, because then it will give me the idea that you really got the witness.
Movement.
What do you see when somebody goes and get in this scenario?
Just another cup of coffee.
Okay,
Just movement.
just a movement. Yeah, not just having another cup of coffee, because that also, having a cup of coffee is already an assumption.
Yeah,
Okay.
Moving towards the cup is not having a cup of coffee, it's just movement.
So it is just movement. That's all it was. You notice, was just a movement. Now, when something becomes just this is getting a little bit very, very deep here, but again, we have to understand the power of witnessing here. When you really see something as just a movement, what has happened?
You're not there.
Hmm?
You're not there.
You're not there. Nothing actually happened.
You disappear.
You see? When something comes to the point where it's only a movement, you disappear. There was a woman, and she was tortured in the Japanese camp during the Second World War. She's still alive. She talked about it. Anyway, and they were treated so badly, the prisoners. You know, they would be kept awake all the time, and they are not to move, not to talk, not to do anything, not eat, not sleep, nothing. And the slightest movement to rest, they would get beaten. And so at one point, this woman, she said, well, how did she put it? It was so beautiful. She came to the point where either she goes crazy or she has to accept what is because she has no choice. The moment she allowed herself to accept what is, she had a spiritual experience. Her experience was so profound that at that moment there was no suffering anymore. There was no torture, there was nothing. The Japanese weren't actually doing anything. They became almost like children playing. You see? She transcended the whole scene. She saw it exactly as it was, because for a moment she witnessed by accepting, because she had no choice. There's another man. He was selling drugs. I think it was ecstasy, and he was locked up in isolation. You know that? You know him?
He had a workshop in my house.
Oh, really?
He did.
Really? And he awakened in prison.
Yeah.
Who is that? You're trying
Oh,
to think
yeah.
of-
What was his name?
From onions to pearls.
That's the one.
Uh,
That's the one. He wrote, yeah, From
That's
Onions
right.
to Pearls.
And from seeker to finder.
From Seeker to Finder. That was his second book,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, yeah. And so he awakened in prison, and sometimes there were really bullies and rough guys, and I think one time they beat him up, and he just, so this is what is happening, and he was not caught. He experienced freedom within the prison while still there. You know. So this is the power of witnessing. It's an incredible thing when you see something as it actually is. The illusion of daily life that you have made so real becomes just as a light on a screen with playing actors, and all of a sudden you see that everything is just one big act and nothing is happening.
We don't actually know what anything is. And that's our assumption that takes us out of that moment. When we are new and aware and willing to surrender that we know nothing, that cleans the space.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Uh,
Yeah, that we know nothing. Yeah. I have a book. If you go to the bathroom, you will see it on there, and I sign it every day. And the second part, it says, there is nothing that I know nothing. And as long as I know nothing, then there's nothing that I cannot know, because I am.
Paradox.
You see, that is the paradox. And this paradox is understood when you begin to enter the fourth dimension. Then it becomes very clear, because everything is one, you see. And that's the whole beauty. So is there anything that you'd like to ask about? Oh, yeah. Now let's do this experiment right now. Those of you watching on the internet, do it also. Okay. Now, I just thought of you. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do is close your eyes for a moment. Okay, and now we'll go back to the same story that Burt gave with a lemon in the fridge. You can see the lemon. Now Burt is taking it out. Let's make it that Burt is doing it, so at least you can be detached from your own personal story. Burt is slicing it. And now Burt bites into it. Good. Now, before you open your eyes, were you able to detach enough to just see it without its story of the lemon taste?
Mhm.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. Did you?
Oh, yeah.
Did you?
Is that what? Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Before I got like shivers in my arms because I was thinking of you like taking a cold lemon now. I was like, oh, it's cold.
And the second time?
No, yeah, I was just witnessing it. It was nothing about the
Great.
story.
How about you, Jim?
I'm just watching. Yeah.
Watching. Great. Wonderful. Wonderful. Now you see, people might raise another point here. They say, but if you tell yourself not to feel anything, not to see anything, won't that kill your spirit? It's the opposite. It makes it more alive than you ever thought was possible.
Why?
Because you have got rid of the only problem that was in life, which is the ego. In other words, maybe the only problem.
The judgment.
The judgments, the conclusions, everything else, that part is gone. And so what is left is the clarity of the moment. When you begin to see the clarity of the moment, you begin to see things as they actually are. They're not really a movement and a story. But beyond that movement and the story, there's so much love. You begin to see things you never saw before. You never experience love until you start experiencing witnessing. Because all you see instead was this incredible feeling, knowing. You know, it's a silence that is so beatific, there are no words to it. See, in talking about it, no one does it any justice. But when you start experiencing something without personal involvement, there's something else that takes over. And it's called the self-organizing principle. Another thing that happens too, through this also, is that the awareness that you are, which you see it as the ultimate being, which you are, takes care of you. And then you know that no matter what happens, no matter what I'm going through, and there's a lot that's going to happen within a few years from now, we are going through an incredible shift. You see? But if you develop the strength, and this is why I felt kind of urgent to put it on YouTube, is that once you start really looking directly, you begin to rise above anything that might disturb you at that point. And then when something does not disturb you, you also understand why it seemed to have happened. You see, you begin to understand things you never understood before. Things become clearer.
I have a question about the lemon. There was a dual perception that perhaps you can give me insight into, because one is just the clear motion of watching the whatever happen and the wonder of that, and then at the same time there was awareness of the understanding that a man was cutting a lemon. So both of those were in the space at the same time. Do you follow that?
Yeah.
So it wasn't that there was no man cutting the lemon for whatever purposes he was going to use.
No, you see a man cutting a lemon.
You see both the valley and the mountaintop at the same time.
You see them both at the same time. But you don't compare, you don't shift,
right.
you don't judge.
They're just there. But
the man on the mountaintop or the woman on the mountaintop does not see a person who is totally unaware and primitive as
Right.
simply, this is a bad person.
You
It doesn't see it like that. It's just,
No.
it just doesn't
Right.
doesn't judge it.
So that was very interesting for
Right.
me
Mm-hmm.
to have both of those
Mm-hmm.
present in the.
Right. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's the beauty of clarity, is that there is no judgment. There is no good or bad, right or wrong. There is only God. And when I say God, you understand what I'm saying, okay? It's not a religion here. Okay? The I am that you are. It's unconditional love. You see? And it's so perfect. And then you begin to understand how everything is perfect, really. You could be in an upheaval, in an earthquake. And all of a sudden there's a moment when nothing is happening, even as you're plunging to your death. I mean, many people have experienced this. One time I was talking about, I was in Port Moody and I was talking about this. And a man said to me, you know, Burt, he said, a few years ago I experienced drowning. And people panicked, you know, and then they saved him after, but that's not the point. The point is that when he was going under and he saw the light of the surface, did you ever go under and you see the surface, the light on the surface of the water and looked up? He said he was in ecstasy. He was drowning, but he was in ecstasy. They saved him at the last moment. But at that moment there was no fear. You see? So, so many times, Boris is doing hospice work now, and I've known many people. You did hospice work, didn't you? Sure. Yeah. And then you see somebody dying in the last moments. If you experience them dying at that moment, you begin to shift your conception of death, and you stay with them at that moment. You see? Because when a person accepts their impending doom, whatever it is, acceptance is very important. Okay, if you fight it, wow, it's very, you know, it's horrific to the person. But if you totally accept it, you enter a space of surrender. And everyone that passed away with that surrender, they had a look in their faces which was so beatific, so radiant. Did you ever read from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross?
Mhm.
She's so beautiful. Yeah.
Five steps.
The 5 steps, yeah. Yeah. And she talked about death and her experience of dying people. Anyway, so are there any questions about witnessing? Yeah.
While you're witnessing, are you going to experience the story? Like you see the story, you feel the feeling, like you see the feeling and you're, because we associate with everything a meaning usually, so we're trying to detach from the meaning.
Right.
Like, do you see all those things? Like for example with the lemon.
Yes,
I
you
associate
see
sour.
everything, but it's just a story.
Okay.
But the story does not connect you. It does not do anything. It becomes irrelevant, immaterial, what is happening. I mean, whether a person walks like this, or walks like this, or whatever, it doesn't matter anymore. You see what I mean? So what is happening, in other words, you know, it's just a happening. And that's one thing that all awakened people say, that all they see is nothing really is happening, it's just a movement. You see?
You can ask the questions too, where is it happening? And then with asking that directly, you go into the thought. And then you look for the thought, and when you look for the thought, it's not there. There's nothing there, right? So it's just, that's where you start to see it was just a story.
That's another way to incidentally, thank you. That's another way also to start witnessing. Okay? Practice seeing the thoughts that come to you. Mind you, Buddha gave it as what is it called? We're talking about it a while ago. Meditation,
Vipassana?
Vipassana. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you watch the thoughts, but after a while, when you start watching thoughts, you don't see thoughts anymore. It's just like clouds. You know, there's no reality at all in them. you see. Until you become totally detached from the thoughts. The moment you become detached from the thoughts, you don't identify with them at all, then the witnessing becomes very pure, very beautiful, you know. And incidentally, with witnessing, things become instant healing. Remember, Boris, he had a headache last time we were here. He had it all day.
Yeah.
And then at one point I was explaining witnessing, and he stopped for a moment. I saw him. He went like this, you know. And then he opened his eyes, and his eyes are actually radiant. They didn't look much. And he said, and then he explained it to us, and he said, yeah. He said, I had this headache all day, and now it's gone. So he actually did the witnessing at that point. You see? So witnessing can be instantaneous. Sometimes my neck gets very bad. I've got a deteriorating disc, you know, and sometimes the pain can be, you know, I have to be careful how to sleep or turn my head. And the only way to deal with it, I never take painkillers, you know, because they take you away from clear seeing. And but when I do witnessing, it feels okay. I'm okay again, you know. So, and at one point I was talking to Jan. Remember one time we were having coffee, and I told you that what did I eat that made me very sick the next day? Oh yeah. This guy said to me in the restaurant. He said, I have special chocolate right now, and I'd like you to try it out, you know. And I like him. He's a Japanese guy, you know. He's got this restaurant, and he made this particular chocolate, whatever it was, and I ate the whole thing one evening. It was delicious. Well, the next morning I was so sick. I was so sick, and I felt like throwing up. It was really, I began perspiring. I was, you know, like trickling. My forehead was trickling, and was so sick. And I went to the bathroom, and even Mushi, you know, became concerned. And so I sat in the toilet, you know, and wondering whether I should throw up from down or up here. And then the thought came to me, I can witness it. And I did. And I was okay 10 minutes later. So it does work, but you have to remind yourself and really look at something as it is without a story, as if you're not there.
So observation is still seeing the story.
Observation is part of awareness. These are all being the same thing. But what I like about witnessing is that it's specific. There's no witnesser. It's just there, and I'm not involved. There's no story that connects me.
It's going past this body form. It's like the story's there because we think we're the body.
Yeah.
This is happening in the body. It's happening to me.
Yeah.
By witnessing, it's bringing you out of that. You
That's
think you're
right.
the body, the attachment to the body, and you're the experience, and you're every emotion and feeling. So.
Right.
Which is why I think you can heal so quickly.
And
Yes.
it heals so quickly because the body's not there to be sick anymore.
Very good. It's true. Did you know the Course in Miracles says that the body is totally neutral, and it is the mind that affects the body, and it's so true. As a matter of fact, and this has been a true case where a person had a split personality, and he would be one person and then become another person. You've heard of split personality, right? Okay. When he became this terrible person, you know, very, very sick and very old, he had diabetes. When he became the other person, physically he was healthy. You see? But he would shift almost without his control from one to the other. And the body reflected each personality fully. So,
I was wondering if that might be an effect of the self-organizing, because when we
Yes.
get out of the way, then life can organize the way it's meant to be.
Excellent. Yes. That's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Right. We get out of the way and then it says, oh, thank you, and I can get back to balance again. Right. That's right.
So I'm just wondering, to witness an emotion, it would be just gone.
Yeah, if you witness an emotion, really witness it, it's gone.
There's nothing.
It can't affect you because emotion is motion of energy, okay? Which means that you believe a thought so strongly that the body reflects it. You see, when the body is acting, it's acting according to that emotion, motion of energy. But if you watch the emotion, you see, through witnessing, and you're detached, it's as if it's happening to somebody else, okay? This is one other way you can say it. What you witness inside you, it's as if it's happening to somebody else. Well, the moment you do that, then the healing happens.
I've noticed too that someone said just the other day, what I was listening to is that an emotion is a thought as well. And I've noticed with my own witnessing at times that it feels really real, like that sadness or something's coming up, I'm crying, and then I stop, and it's like, what is this? And then you just realize as well, it's just this juice, like it's just the story behind it. Feels like the emotion's really real, but it's just another thought about that. And then immediately it just stops. There's no more emotion left. I'm like, well, that's not real anymore. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
One other thing too, when you start practicing too, witnessing, is that the emotions might reflect in your body, but you can already have learned to be detached until eventually it will stop. For example, you can find yourself crying over an incident, but you're not really feeling as bad as it might seem to an onlooker. You see what I mean? Yeah. So these are the stages that you go through until eventually you're totally detached.
I think it's of importance to note that don't stop yourself from full expression of everything
That's
in order
right.
to try to be something other than already is. So if you cry, cry. If you laugh, laugh. If you just let that be. The witnessing is not about getting rid of anything. That all stuff can happen on its own. So it's not about not crying, because
That's
as
right.
you say, when you go into it, you can have compassion for the tears without having any attachment to any of the story about it.
Right, right.
And that's a beautiful
I'm
thing.
so glad you added that part too. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. To allow everything, not to make how it should be. There is no such thing as how it should be. What it is, and you witness it as it is. You see? So if you find yourself getting caught, witness getting caught. And it purifies itself as time goes on. You see? You cannot just start witnessing right from the start unless you happen to be already on the fourth dimension, you know.
It's very difficult for us who've lived mostly on a linear basis to not try to attain something.
That's right, yeah.
And so this smashes the whole timeline and the whole attainment concept, because you're just present there. And
Right, right.
there's nowhere to
So
go.
we go back to feel it out, okay? To witness is to see something as it actually is, without a story. And if a story comes, that's okay, you see? But you already keep watching the story as it actually is, without its story. Even the story is happening. Are you with me?
Yeah, that's
Yeah. See, and as you keep on watching it as it actually is, you're moving deeper and deeper all the time.
Don't embellish the story.
Yeah.
And as it actually is, can only be one way.
Well, there is no other way, because
Exactly, that's what I mean.
whatever
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And to see it as it actually is, I mean, that's a very big step. You see? But because so many people ask, the world is suffering and so many things are happening and I'm going through this turmoil and this and this and this and that, and they're actually suffering, they're really feeling bad and feels very real. Okay, and to tell these people, what you're doing is wrong and try to be detached, you make things worse. So the point is to learn to love whatever is happening. It's all part of the game, and that's how you start becoming a witness.
Sounds like you don't give a damn about anything.
You see, you just accept everything that is happening.
It's actually not giving a damn. It's because what arises from my experience in witnessing is incredible compassion. Because you
Yes.
see the inside story. You see the inside story of which you can know all human beings are subject to. And that can give rise to incredible compassion. At the same time,
You're not caught.
you're not caught.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that your heart, your whatever that is, can't feel the great love and compassion for all of us that are caught in story in some
Right.
ways.
Exactly. Exactly. That's the beauty too, you see. Witnessing increases compassion. See, but until we start actually witnessing, you know, it, you'll find that these words are very contradictory, they're very paradoxical. Until you actually start witnessing and then start feeling what is happening inside you. It's a whole new life, it's a whole new way of being.
Yeah, you gave such compassion, you gave so much vibrancy to that word when you just said that.
Was that?
When you said that compassion, it had so much vibrancy in
Ah.
that way you said it.
Yeah, compassion is so beautiful.
Yeah.
You see, like one time she told me, she said, I'm an empath, and I said, that's a gift. You see, but the point is not to get caught in that. You see, not to make it personal, but to be an empath means empathy. You see, to feel what another person is feeling, to feel their feeling, to know their suffering, to be compassionate, but yet it does not take you in, doesn't sweep you in, because then you become, then you're no good to anybody if you get caught in it.
Burnout.
Yeah. So are there any questions?
Will the ego ever pipe in if you notice that you're witnessing and then?
Oh
might be
sure,
like,
it will
"Oh,
pipe.
I just
Oh
witnessed."
my
Because I
God.
feel like that happened to me the other night in yoga. I was meditating, and then I was, oh my god, I witnessed, and I was like, okay, and then I witnessed, like I guess I, unquote, witnessed that as well. But I noticed my ego, or
Yes.
whatever, the little voice in my head saying,
Yeah.
oh I got it.
Yeah, and if you say, oh, I witnessed that, it was the ego that says it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's okay. You see, never make anything wrong.
Is it because we're
It's-
conditioned like for achievement, and so we feel like
Yeah,
we got
exactly,
something,
exactly.
that sort of
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah, that's right. We're programmed. We're wired. We are wired for power. To be better, to achieve, to accomplish. You see? Yeah. Well, thank you. You've added quite a bit to it, so clarified many aspects. Okay. So, no questions, okay? Okay, namaste.
Yeah.
Namaste.